in Mexico again.
Mexico's Secretariat of Defense says the army has killed a top cartel leader known as El Mencho. The Secretariat mentions coordination with U.S. intelligence. The U.S. Embassy in Mexico still advising U.S. citizens to avoid any unnecessary movements because of ongoing violence there.
Vámonos. Vámonos. No te muevas. Bájate, entrégate. Manos arriba. No te muevas.
We're now being told there's fires in Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Cozumel, everywhere. They're lighting businesses on fire, blowing up gas stations. Complete chaos. Costco is on fire. This is in Puerto Vallarta. They're lighting all the cars on fire. Again, retaliation for them taking out El Mencho. U.S. citizens are being told to shelter in place. Stay out of the public eye. It's getting really, really scary.
No mames. ¿Están bien?
Gente corriendo. Cuidado, no se crucen. Cuidado, cuidado. No, cuidado, cuidado. No manches.
¿Ya la prendieron? ¡Súbete! ¡Súbete, Peque!
Cartel leaders Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, was killed after an operation to capture him earlier today. Officials say he died while being flown to Mexico City. Since then, many cars and buildings have been set on fire, which is a tactic used by the cartel to block military operations. Violence also sending people running for safety in the Guadalajara airport. The U.S. State Department is warning U.S. citizens in Jalisco, which includes Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara, Tamaulipas, Michoacan, Guerrero, and Nuevo León to shelter in place. Here at home,
American tourists desperate to leave Mexico, following stunning scenes of violence at a number of popular resort areas, including charred buildings and cars and storefronts riddled with bullets. The chaos blamed on drug cartel members furious about the killing of their boss over the weekend by Mexican special forces. Mexican authorities say they found the drug kingpin Nemesio Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, by tracking his romantic partner. American Yoni Pizer and his partner experiencing the terror firsthand, saying they were forced out of their rental vehicle.
Place in Mexico after violence broke out following a military operation to take down the country's most wanted drug leader, El Mencho. The ongoing violence killing over 25 Mexican National Guard troops and more than 24 criminal suspects. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says government agencies are working to get the violence under control. Here's Mexico's president yesterday. Watch.
The most important thing at this moment is to guarantee peace and the safety of all the population of all of Mexico. And that is being done. Today, there's more tranquility, there's more government, armed forces, security cabinet, and there's a lot of coordination. It is important that you know that Command Center is maintained today on national coordination, where the 3 secretaries, their teams, the Secretary of the Interior, to coordinate with all state governments.
Joining me now is the Sheriff of Terrell County, Texas, Sheriff Thaddeus Cleveland. Sheriff, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. So do you expect this violence in Mexico, where now there's this race to take over the Jalisco cartel and these drug cartel wars? Do you see any of that violence spreading across the border into America?
Hey, good morning, Maria. Great to be on with you. And no, I don't see it spreading across the border. And that's why we have U.S. Border Patrol, of course, Customs and Border Protection at our ports of entries. I see them, of course, preparing for anything that could escalate into something, a little larger. And we have, of course, during past uproars of violence or upticks, we'll see a stray bullet or something come across the border, but we won't have any spillover into U.S. soil.
And what are you seeing on the ground there, Sheriff? I mean, look, this ambush on this drug boss has created massive worry about Mexico, and the State Department is telling anybody, American citizens who are in Mexico, to shelter in place. What should we expect from those people? When can they be on the move again and get out?
No, Maria, I think that's the biggest concern right now are those American tourists that are in Mexico or business folks that are in various places in Mexico, just their safety. Of course, remain in shelter in place is a great step until some of that violence starts to kind of curb and lower, and then we can start getting some of those folks out of there. They can resume their travel plans. But I would think, again, that is our most critical piece, are American citizens that are in Mexico waiting to get out.
Well, thankfully, the border is secure, thanks to President Trump. You haven't seen any activity of any drug cartels trying to cross the border, right?
No, ma'am. We're still kind of having that normal flow of the reason why we have U.S. Border Patrol, people that are still trying to cross the border, a lot lower than what we've discussed over the past 4 years, Maria.
Sure.
But even right now, as soon as we're done with this interview, I'm going to go help Border Patrol with the group they just detected on our portion of the U.S.-Mexico border. But we still have record low numbers and allowing us to get out and do some other things that we need to be taking care of here along the border.
And that group is from where? And you're talking about which area of the border? El Paso? What's this group you just referred to?
Yes, ma'am. So we're Terrell County, Sanderson, Texas is located in between San Antonio and El Paso along the U.S.-Mexico border. And the border is about 20 miles from the location that I'm standing at now. So this group crossed and hit a device or a sensor of U.S. Border Patrol that detected the bodies. And as I was starting up my vehicle this morning to come talk with you a little bit, I could hear the activity going. I've got a deputy out there assisting. They're likely from Mexico, and the normal traffic we see out here, people just trying to cross the border to come to the United States and get in somewhere where they have family, relatives, and get a job.
Yeah, well, I've been to the region many times. I know exactly the area that you're talking about. Maybe they're trying to escape the violence that's underway throughout Mexico, right? From this.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachaha, Quadash. Double honors to the head apostles and the others, great millstone who will well and teach well. This is the brother Mattathiah from the GMS Virginia camp, coming to you through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh being a true, holy, and powerful name of the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shai being a true, holy, and powerful name of his only begotten Son, whom this world ignorantly calls Jesus and Christ. Bahashem is in the name, and Lord willing, this will be an edifying lesson. And as you see, violence, chaos, fires erupt in various parts of Mexico. Now I want to start in 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, and the 1st verse. It says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord. And you have the prophets that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai has set all over the four corners of the earth, prophesying, giving a warning unto you biblical Israelites, which consist of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, telling you things that will take place, that will happen before they happen, like it speaks about in the book of Isaiah. Let's get that real quick. And then I want to touch on a statement that this sheriff from Texas made, okay? This is Isaiah 42:9. It says, behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. And the prophets that Yahweh Hashem Yahushai set all over the four corners of the earth, the true prophets, have been warning you, Jakes, of chaos, of catastrophe, of destabilization, okay? Of Esau's devices, of the uproars of people, the sedition, all hell breaking loose. So the warning has gone out. All right. Now let's I want to play a part of this news report that was already in the beginning of this video, but you know, the sheriff made a couple statements that I want to touch on. So without further ado, let's jump back into it.
Sheriff, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. So do you expect this violence in Mexico, where now there's this race to take over the Jalisco cartel and these drug cartel wars? Do you see any of that violence spreading across the border into America?
Hey, good morning, Maria. Great to be on with you. And no, I don't see it spreading across the border. And that's why we have U.S. Border Patrol, of course, Customs and Border Protection at our ports of entries. Obviously, them, of course, preparing for anything that could escalate into something, you know, a little larger.
So he doesn't see this spilling over into across the border into America. And I also want to say, these things happening with this, so-called cartels over in Mexico. It was all set up. It was all planned. And who was behind all this? None other than Esau Edom himself. Okay. He's the one who employs these cartel leaders. He's the one that heavily influences and funds these various different cartels. Okay. He controls them and he uses them for his benefit and for his agenda. Now, with the statement that the sheriff made concerning he doesn't see this spilling over into America, well, I mean, maybe so, maybe not. But the things happening in Mexico and these various different lands, Venezuela, China, the wicked elites use these various different places as test runs, okay, for what ultimately is going to come and they're going to make happen in Babylon the Great, which is America. And some of these cartel leaders are actually agents. They're actually CIA operatives, and or they are heavily, working with the CIA. Okay, and you can do your research on that. All right.
And we have, of course, during past uproars of violence or upticks, we'll see a stray bullet or something come across the border, but we won't have any spillover into U.S. soil.
Yeah, so he's sure that there won't be any spillover into U.S. soil. How can you be so sure? All right, because is there not cartel members and members that are under the cartel over here in America, on the soils of America? Is there not Mexican gangs? All right, is there not Latin America, gangs? All right, set up and orchestrated over here in America. Okay, so how can you say that it won't spill over? All right, if they have their allegiance to certain high-level leaders in these Mexican gangs, etc., the cartel, and they get orders, or will they not orchestrate those orders over in the lands that they dwell. Okay. So, you have these Americans, and they have this mindset that they're so protected, they're so safe, and, things can't possibly get as bad as we see in these various different countries, these various different lands, third world countries, Mexico, Venezuela, these poor other territories outside of Babylon the Great, right? They have a sense of protection. They have a sense of, that America could never reach a very, very low point. Okay, and they're in hopes of that. All right.
What are you seeing on the ground there, Sheriff? I mean, look, this ambush on this drug boss has created massive worry about Mexico, and the State Department is telling anybody, American citizens who are in Mexico, to shelter in place. What should we expect from those people? When can they be on the move again and get out?
No, Maria, I think that's the biggest concern right now are those American tourists that are in Mexico or business folks that are in various places in Mexico, just their safety. Of course, remain in shelter in place is a great step until...
Yeah, and there's been reports of, they're attacking Americans. They've shut the airports down. They're setting planes on fire, buses. They're closing down the streets. There's been an order for Americans to shelter in place, so, hey. This is 2 Ezra 15:15. It says, "For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes." That's what you see happening. All right, these members of this cartel on down are taking matters into their own hands. Right, they're not regarding authorities. They're not regarding, all right, the president of Mexico, the president of the United States, the military, etc. And you very well could see the American military get involved in this whole ordeal. But you best believe something, that Esau Edom has an agenda behind all this. Okay. It says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." All right. And the things that you see happening in these other lands, well, this is soon to happen, and even greater on a higher scale over here in Babylon the Great. Okay. There's going to be a high level sedition, which you already see the build up right now. But it's going to be on a scale, on a level that these average people can't even fathom. It says, "And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able." You saw the video clips of the cities, right, being shut down and barricaded. Let's see if we can jump back to that. They're lighting buses on fire so you can't travel abroad. They're lighting gas stations on fire. And Esau Edom's behind all this. Okay, because it makes no sense to me. The cartel lives in these particular cities, all right? These particular places. It makes no sense. Why destroy your own establishments, okay? Why destroy the stores you go to? Why destroy the gas stations you get gas at? Why destroy the streets you travel on, okay? Even your business, being a cartel member, your business is heavily dictated on, the streets, the roads, the businesses, all right, the people, the grocery stores, the gas stations, the airports, all right. You take all that away, you can't make money on the level that you're making, right? It says, "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their Salakia. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid." And this is going to happen on a high level in America. Okay. All hell's going to break loose. You're not going to be able to pick up the phone and call for the police. All right. You're not going to be able to scream for help. All right. You're not going to have no type of protection. All right, for those, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that do not put their faith and trust in Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, okay? You're going to have militias and groups of people going through different cities and towns, okay? It says invading one another, for the lack of food, for the great, turmoil, the conflicts, right? The great death. They're going to feel abandoned by the government. The city's being shut down. They lost their job. They lost their house. All the time and energy they put into America and chasing that ladder of success is going to be, it's going to cease to exist. So people are going to crash out on a high level. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses. Salaki, let me finish 18. It says, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Right? And, there's a lot of things happening in Mexico that are not being reported. Okay? They said so-called no Americans have been deleted. All right. But, I think that is actually a false statement and propaganda that is being pushed by, the American media, etc. Okay. I think there's a lot going on in Mexico right now that is not being talked about. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. All right. So people are going to take matters into their own hands. It says, verse 20. Salaki, that was the point on that. Let's skip to the book of Romans chapter 13 and verse 11. And it says, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. And that's concerning what? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Not all nations, not these heathen, not Edomites. Right? It's only speaking to the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? It says, in that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. Now is the time to wake out of your slumber, Jake. Okay? Now is not the time to be partying, to be bullshitting. It's time to repent, to turn your face to Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. Do a complete 180 in life. Mentally forsake this world and put all your faith and trust in Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. Because it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. And it's only going to get better when righteousness is set on high, when the kingdom is established, and when true order is set upon the earth. Lord willing, that was edifying. I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, B'Hashem, Ruchaha Kodash. Double honors to the head apostle, Nellis, a great millstone, who rule well and teach well. Till next time, Shalom.